so happy to have you with me today. Today we are going to be talking about the two voices in the mind. So we have two voices in the mind. And before we talk about that, I want to talk about the different functions of the different parts of the mind. So everybody's got one mind. It's not like your mind is fragmented into a bunch of different little things. But there are different functions within the mind. And so then as a result of that, we give these different functions names, and it sounds as though you have separate minds. And that's really not how it works. But let's talk about those different functions and what we call them. Okay, so we have the conscious mind, which is also called the male mind, or the raw part of the mind, RA. In the Psalmic magic, that's Israel, is male, female, and divine. Male, female, and divine. So it is the choosing part of the mind. It is the part of the mind that makes choices and decisions. But it's also the part of the mind where mortality lives. The conscious mind is the mortal mind. It's the part of the mind that is involved in linear time. It's involved in three-dimensional reality. It's involved in focusing, almost obsessing on that which is temporary by nature. So a lot of the thoughts within the mortal mind are temporary by nature as well. But the function of this mind is that it is the chooser. It's the planter of seeds. So the more focused on the temporal that it is, the more that we allow our conscious, whatever we allow our conscious mind to focus on, are the seeds that it is planting within the next phase of the mind that we want to talk about. And that's the deep mind, sometimes called the subconscious mind by many people. And this part of the mind is feminine. It's the feminine part of the mind. It's the Isis part of the mind, the is of the Israel. And it does not have the power of volition. It does not have the power of choice. It is simply fertile. All it does is it takes what is planted and gives it life. It gives it, it allows it to grow forth. So if we're not conscious with our conscious mind, if we don't have awareness with our conscious mind about what we're choosing to think with our conscious mind, then we create by default. We create by default. And so a lot of the seeds that are planted within the deep mind are seeds that are planted absent-mindedly through because we indulge mind wandering. We indulge in lazy thinking. So because we indulge in lazy thinking, we are plagued sometimes by all kinds of experiences within our lives that are of our own doing, that are of our own negligence, right? So the subconscious mind won't say no, don't plant that seed. Don't plant that seed. You don't want that. She just is there to just say, whatever you plan, I trust you. I give you. I'm going to turn it into. I'm going to give it life. I'm going to make it so. I'm going to make it so. Then we have our super conscious mind, or our God mind, or our higher self, our soul, our true mind. This is who we really are. The superconscious mind does have the power of choice, but it does not come in uninvited. The superconscious mind does have the ability to choose. It does have the ability to plant seeds, just like our conscious mind does. It's a type of conscious mind, but it's a superconscious mind. And it only plants seeds of the divine designs in our life, that which we are here, that we came here to accomplish, the reason why we decided to incarnate in three-dimensional reality, all of those reasons that sometimes we choose to forget, the superconscious mind knows. And so if our conscious mind is willing to give the superconscious mind the center stage, if you will, to plant those seeds, then the conscious mind is actually functioning at its height, at its highest, because it is serving the soul rather than the ego. Okay? So again, the ego's not evil. the ego's not Satan. Well, it is Satan, and that's what Satan's supposed to represent. Satan's nothing to be afraid of. Satan is it's a construct. It's not an entity. It's just an old-fashioned way of saying adversary, And so the adversarial parts of our mind are what the ego is. And there's nothing wrong with having an adversary. Sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need that questioning part of your mind to say, oh, really? Prove it. That kind of stuff. That's fine. But when that doesn't serve a higher function and it is its own it's its own master, that's when we get into trouble, because all the ego mind knows how to do is separate. All it knows how to do is separate out and want to be by itself. And it's constantly going to be adversarial to anything that doesn't look like that. So that part of that voice is always wanting to distract us away from the superconscious mind, because it's got its own desire for status quo. It's just how it's programmed. It's just the function of the mind. It's not that it's evil. It's not that it's bad, but it can be very self-destructive. It can be extremely self-destructive. And so those self-destructive patterns come out of listening to that voice within our mind, that adversarial voice within our mind. Now, if we can train ourselves to listen to the voice that is our superconscious mind, or our inner guide, our inner teacher, our spirit guide, our mental teacher, our whatever you call it. I mean, I guess if you're a Christian, you call it your savior, but it's that part of the mind, it's simply just a part of your mind that is your soul, that doesn't have all these additions. The ego is everything that you've added to your soul, and your soul doesn't need anything added, because your soul was created perfect. If we think back to the basics of who we are, there is one power, there's one source, there's one force, there's one substance in all the universe, and it is one, and it is good. And we are simply extensions and expressions of that creativity, of that universal force. And that's what our soul is. It's a bright extension, perfect extension of light, unique unto itself, nobody else like you. You're very unique. You have a very unique function within the universe, very important function to fulfill. Right? And everything that you need is given to you. You are fully 100% equipped to not only exist happily within the universe, but to fully function within the universe the way you were created to function at peak level. That's how your soul is. Now, what we do with that is, when we get that adversarial ego mind involved, the ego mind says, yeah, but it needs to be fixed. It needs to be improved on. It needs to be changed, because I want to be separate. I don't want to just be my own unique expression of perfection. I want to be special in my way. I want to be separate from my creator. I don't want to be a sunbeam to the sun. I want to be a sunbeam by itself. I want to be my own sun. Well, those kinds of bratty little thoughts are nothing but just nothing but noise. But when we start listening to that noise and taking heed of that noise, then the creative power of our mind is put into operation, planting the seeds of that voice. And so those are the seeds of separation. Those are the seeds of discontentment. Those are the seeds of all problems in the world. Every single problem. We can't even conceive of a life without problems. For us, that sounds really boring. For us, that sounds like something that's not even possible. And even if it was possible, why would you want that? Because you couldn't grow without problems. Blah 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 blah. Well, in a way, that's true. In this world, you can't grow without problems. In this world, that's true, because this world is a world of separation and a world of problems. So so I guess what we have to decide is, why are we here? what do we want out of this life? What is it that we are seeking to have here, to be here, and to do here? Well, if we listen to the voice of the ego says, well, we're here to create our own kingdom. We are here to get ahead. We are here to fight everybody else that's ahead of us, so that we can get ahead of them, so that we can have what we want, because not everybody gets what they want. If somebody gets what they want, I can't have what I want, so I have to make sure that I get what I want first, so that I can get the pie. And, that's how the ego thinks, that there's only so much pie, and I want it. And that's how the ego works. So those are the kinds of seeds we plant every time we listen to that voice. Now, the voice of the soul doesn't think like that. The voice of the soul knows that that's not true. The voice of the soul doesn't even have that conception. The voice of the soul says, I am completely 100% equipped to keep expanding and expanding and expanding and growing and growing and growing by fulfilling my function here. And I do that through peace. I do that through joy. I have everything that I need. All my needs are fulfilled at every moment of time and point of space, and I allow myself to fulfill my function right here and right now. I am here to extend love into the universe. I am here to shine brightly like the star that I am. I am here to extend love and blessing, just like I am an extension of love and blessing. That's how the soul experiences life. So, when we are in a world of separation like this dimension, where the soul doesn't actually live in this world, but the soul is cognizant of the fact that we do live in this world, and the soul is that part of our mind that is the truth, that is the reality of any situation. Now, the soul, for instance, let's go back to problems. When we have problems, the ego looks at problems as just a fact of life. You need the problems, you need suffering, you need pain, it's good for you. That's how the ego looks at it. Yeah, of course you're going to learn lessons, whatever, but you got to have problems. Lots and lots and lots of them. Lots of problems. The more problems, the better. The soul looks at that and says, well, I can see that you've got a problem here, but the soul doesn't look at a problem in the same way as the ego does. The soul looks at a problem as like a math problem to be solved. And the way that the soul looks at a problem, it says, well, that problem's already solved, right? Just because you put 2 + 2 equals on the chalkboard doesn't mean that the solution isn't already there. The universe, God, if you will, has already determined that 2 + 2 = 4. The answer is already there. Whether or not the student has realized the answer and been able to put it on the board is yet to be seen. But whether or not the student puts that answer on the board, the answer is already there. The answer is already correct. There's only one answer to that problem. Right? So that's how the soul looks at any problem. It's just like, well, the answer's already there. There's only one answer to this problem. And it's really easy to do. So let me show you. Let me show you what that is. Let me show you where to go, where to be, how to do it. And I'll show you how this has already been solved. There's not one problem that hasn't already been solved. Now, the ego doesn't look at it like that, does it? The ego looks at it as just like, oh no, this is coming to get you. We better go out and attack a little bit. We better go out and attack some people so that they don't get the solution before you do. That kind of thing. So the ego is all about competition. The ego is all about separation. The ego is all about fear. The ego, it's a thought. It's a matrix of thoughts that are based on separation. And thoughts based on separation are thoughts that are constantly fearful. That's just how they are. It's just the nature of what they are. Because in ultimate reality, those thoughts can't exist. Those thoughts can't exist. Ultimately, your soul doesn't even understand it because it's so mad. Your soul doesn't understand it because it's not understandable. God could never understand madness like that. So there's no part of your spiritual truth that understands the insanity that is your ego. because it's not understandable. So trying to make sense out of it is just a losing battle. When you try to make sense of insanity, you tend to go insane. It's just the nature of that. So what the soul does is, rather than looking at the problem and saying, well, I understand, and let's just talk about it. Let's just see where this came from and how this. But no, it doesn't see that at all. The soul looks at this and just says, this doesn't really exist. This problem doesn't really exist like you think it does. This problem is already solved, and it's just a matter of all I have to do is show you. All I have to do is show you, and it's over. All I have to do is show you where this is, and you'll get it, and it's over. The ego mind gets wind of that and says, no. Don't listen to that. Don't listen to that voice. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Look at this. Ooh, scary problems. Ooh, scary problems. So that old image of the angel and the devil on your shoulder, it was sort of that used to be sort of a moralistic sort of image of your conscience making the right decision. You don't want to steal, you want to do the right thing, that kind of thing. But if you look at the angel and devil on your shoulder less like that and more like a day-to-day, moment-to-moment choice that you always get to make, no matter what it is, you're choosing between separation and unification. You're choosing between the leaning into the problem versus the solving of the problem. The soul's way of handling a problem is solving it. The ego's way of handling a problem is creating a game of whack-a-mole. Okay, so it wants to keep you busy, because as soon as this problem gets solved, three more just came up, and you're just going to be busy doing whack-a-mole a long time. And the ego's got to make it just interesting enough and give you enough of a feeling like you're succeeding, that you don't give up. Because if you give up, then maybe you'll listen to that other voice, right? So it's just going to keep you busy, and that's why the ego is very crafty. Very crafty, because it's brilliant. You're a genius, right? You were born genius. You are a genius. The ego doesn't want you to know that. The ego does not want you to know that, because if your self-esteem rises, then you're going to try to start to see things differently. But you are a genius, and the ego is part of that genius used against you. It's your own cleverness that you're using against yourself. Nobody's doing it to you. You're doing it to yourself. It's just a function of how that part of the mind works. Okay, so, and it only has power over you if you listen to it and agree to it. Otherwise, it's just noise that you can ignore. It has no power. It's just like a virus has no power of its own. A virus doesn't have life force. It borrows your life force. That's like a parasite. That's what the ego is. It's a parasite. The only difference is with a virus, we have to find, medical intervention to handle a virus in the physical world. We don't need that to handle the virus in the invisible world. The virus of the ego is handled by the soul. It's just taken care of for us. We don't have to do anything about that. It's taken care of for us. So anyway, if your ego were to allow you to sit and be quiet and silent, it would be against its interests, because remember, its own self-interest is to keep you separate, is to keep you away from unity, is to keep you away from peace, it's to keep you away from all your good, not just because it wants to torture you, but because it's got its own insane survival instinct. It's insanity. Don't try to make sense of it. It's just insanity. Okay? So that's why we are so prone to mind wandering. That's why we are so undisciplined. And that's why we scatter these seeds of discontent within our deep mind so much. It's because the ego's got that wired. It knows how to keep you distracted. It knows how to keep you busy. You've been doing it for years. You are so good at being distracted. You are so, not you personally, you meaning all of us, so good at being distracted, at being really busy with stupid, nonsensical, inane nonsense bullshit. Pardon my French. Okay? It's main currency. Once you start on a spiritual path, it says, uh-oh. Once you start on a spiritual path, it goes, wait a minute, we got to find some better way of doing this, right? We got to find a better way of doing this, because it doesn't want you to be awake to the fact that it has no power over you. It doesn't want you to wake up and see what's been going on. It's like you wake up from this sleep, it's like you've been under the spell of this ego. You wake up and you go, what the heck has been going on around here? What have I been doing? Once you wake up to who you are, no more of this. Let's not do this anymore. It's the last thing the ego wants, because it knows that it can't have any control over you then. The only way it can have control over you is if it gets you to agree. That's it. It's the power of your agreement. So which voice you listen to determines which kinds of seeds you are planting and what kinds of results you're going to be having. Now, the seeds that the soul plants are seeds of magick. They are seeds of great miracles. The type of seeds that the soul plants are seeds that say, I already have solved your problem. There's nothing to worry about. Let's just solve it. Let's just be there now. Now, what happens with that is that there's this phenomenon that occurs in when working magic in three-dimensional reality. There is a lag time, and there really needs to be, especially at first, because a lot of times people are embroiled in these problems. Really bad ones, really awful things going on in their lives, right? Really horrible things. And once they hear about this kind of stuff and they say, okay, I'm going to listen to the voice for my soul, or whatever you call it. I'm going to listen to my soul's voice. I'm going to listen to the voice of infinite spirit instead of my ego. And I'm going to get out of this because because the infinite spirit has all the solutions. Yay. Okay, here we go. And then they wonder why it didn't just poof in a puff of smoke. Well, there's several reasons for this. One reason is that just because you change one thought once doesn't mean that you really planted enough seeds to reap a harvest, right? But the good news is that if you plant grain, it feeds your community forever, because it's self-perpetuating, and you don't have to weed the garden. You don't have to weed the fields. Grain will take care of the weeds for you, right? So if you allow your soul to plant grain, this is just metaphorical, right? Metaphorical. This is a metaphor. Grain meaning sustenance for your soul, sustenance for your life, so the solving of your problems. If you allow your soul to plant these seeds of grain, they will take care of the weeds that the ego has been sowing for so long, and that does happen. Why doesn't it happen immediately, though? Well, there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons why. The biggest reason why is because you would shut it down. You would shut that shit down if that happened. We think we really want to have, a real miracle. I want to see, like say you're having a financial problem. No. I want a financial miracle. I want those, couple $1 million just coming in, and then everything will be cool. We really think that's the case. The soul knows differently. The soul knows that if you had your problem solved that quickly, since you are so much a creature, you've allowed yourself to be so much of a creature of time and space, and you are so locked into this reality that if things happen too quickly, it freaks you out. It brings your fear level up to a point where you're actually worse off than you would have been had you just left it alone. And so your soul is never going to bring up your level of fear. Your soul wants to go the other way. Your soul wants to go to the level of diminishing your fear. And of course it would love it to be immediate, because in reality it is immediate. But it also knows that because of where you are and how you are in this particular time-space continuum, that we have to go at a pace that is not going to make things worse, but better. And that's why when we are working with the soul, sometimes it does appear like our problems get worse for a minute rather than better. It's not that they're getting worse rather than better. They are being brought up to the surface so that we can, because we can't just say, okay, now fix it for me. Bye. I'm going to go and have coffee. That's not how it works. It's up to you to decide what you want and what you don't want. It's up to you. You have free will. So when you ask for help from your soul to solve certain problems, all of a sudden it says, okay, let's do it. And so then all of these things come up so that you can say, do I want to keep this or do I want to let it go? Do I want to keep this or do I want to let it go? If you want to let it go, your soul will take it from there. You don't have to worry about it. It says, okay, here we go. I got it. It's just, it can't do it without your permission, right? So, and when you start to get good at listening to the voice for your soul, and these things come up and they get released and you get better, little by little, you start feeling safer and safer to allow it to happen more and more quickly and more and more quickly. And eventually, through practice, over time, you do start having those manifestations that seem crazy miraculous to the untrained eye, because it's organic to who you are at that point. It's not bringing up more fear. It's actually the kind of pace that's appropriate for where you are, right? But the first step is just to recognize that you have those two voices in your mind. Now, when I say voices, I don't necessarily mean, radio voices that you can actually hear. Some people do. And certain kinds of hearing voices, denote mental illness, and if that's what you're experiencing, you definitely want to seek some attention, because that might need some medical intervention. But that's not what we're talking about. What I'm talking about with voices, I'm talking about motivating factors within the mind. Things that are calling on you to bring attention to you, to call attention to themselves. So the voice for the ego tends to be loud. It tends to be fast. It tends to want you to make choices without thinking. It tends to be rash. It tends to be wanting instant gratification. Those kinds of things. It tends to increase your fear. It tends to increase your chaos. It tends to promise you things that once you get those things, they are not satisfying, but they are a new lust for another new result, and if you happen to get that, then that's actually not satisfying, because it's then catalyst for the new lust for the next thing. And it's always keeping you on this goal of seeking but not finding, seeking but not finding, seeking but not finding. Stay on the treadmill, stay busy, stay on the treadmill, stay busy. That's what the ego mind will always sound like. And it may take some practice to notice that. But if it's bringing you more peace, if you're able to relax in the presence of the voice, if it's making you feel like there's less and less tension in your body, it's probably not the voice of your ego. Probably not the voice of your ego. Now, if you're listening to the voice for your soul, usually it is very soft in the way it speaks. Not always. Sometimes it will speak with a really loud voice. Sometimes it will be in a very loud mood, but not normally. Usually the voice for your soul is gentle, loving, persistent, peaceful, happy, funny, joyous. Usually when you get it, usually when you listen to the voice for your soul, you get a sense of bliss, a sense of joy, oftentimes uncontrollable laughter out of nowhere. You don't know why everything just was so funny, right? Usually that's a good indicator that you're listening to the right voice. Always feeling like, everything's going to be okay. There's a way out. I know that things are going to be fine. Those are the kinds of things that you're going to hear from your soul. Right? And a lot of people, when they hear those ideas, they think, yeah, but now that sounds like we're going into denial. It sounds like we're going into fantasy land, like everything's going to be okay. No, because the ego voice has an everything's going to be okay voice too. That's the voice that's just like, put your head in the sand. Don't think about anything. I've got everything under control. Don't look at that man behind the curtain. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. The ego has its own version of everything's going to be okay. The soul's version of everything's going to be okay is it will show you how everything's going to be okay, because it shows you that everything already is okay. It shows you that there's a way in which you can be lifted out of this particular manifestation of thinking and into another manifestation of thinking that's already been set up for you, that you were already created to experience, that you were already created to explore. In other words, when Jesus said, seek ye first the kingdom of God, or seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you, that's what it was talking about. It wasn't talking about some mystical place behind some pearly gates off in the sky somewhere with some guy in a beard that's going to tell you his opinion of you. That's not what he was talking about. That's not the mystical truth behind that passage. What that's talking about is the choice that we make. Seeking the kingdom of heaven is simply making a choice to listen to the voice of our soul over the clamoring shrieks of our ego. That's simply all it means. And there is no more powerful choice in the world. That's where magic happens. That's where miracles happen. That's where literal mountains are moved. That's where Red Seas are parted. Things like that. You know what I mean? And again, you don't have to think biblically. I'm just saying those things just because they're in the zeitgeist of the human mind. It's not I don't expect you to think biblically necessarily, unless that's your thing. But recognizing that there is a force of consciousness that's capable of transforming things completely. That's what we're after. But that only comes when we listen to the voice for the soul rather than the voice for our own ego, our own catalyst for separation. Does that make sense? Okay. So your ego's not going to just disappear because you know about it. That's not your goal, is to get rid of your ego or to transcend your ego or to punish your ego or to eliminate your ego or to do anything with your ego. Your only thing to do with your ego is to not engage with it, is to not listen to it. Or if you do notice it, to not agree with it, not to get pulled into it, not to get hooked by it, right? I learned this technique many years ago, and I will share it with you. It works very well. When you notice that part of your mind is just really on your case, it's either trying to make you feel bad about yourself, it's trying to make you feel bad about somebody else, it's trying to pull you into some kind of weird addictive behavior, it's trying to pull you into a situation that this is, before I talk about this, this is how it works though. Just get a clear understanding so that you understand the kind of force you're dealing with here. And again, this is your own mind used against you. Right? This is your own stuff. This is nobody doing it to you. The ego mind goes all out trying to get you to do this thing and do this thing and do this thing and do this thing, and it really convinces you to do this thing, so you finally do this thing, and this thing has horrible ramifications. What does the ego mind do? Why were you so stupid to do that thing? God, what an idiot. Look at you. Now what you've done. You've done that thing. Right? And we never, ever hold it to account. We never sit back and think, wait a minute, the same voice that got me into this trouble is now telling me what an asshole I am for getting into this trouble. We never even look at it that way, because if we did, we would stop listening to this dumb, stupid, fakakta ego, because it never gives us anything but trouble, right? But that's how cunning and sly it is. We don't even recognize what we're doing. Right? Now, when we start listening to it and taking heed of it and start responding and interacting with it and doing what it says, that's when we're in trouble. So what do we do once we notice? What do we do once we notice that we're being nagged at by our ego, or that we're finding fault with others with our ego, or that whatever it is, that whatever kind of communication it's trying to give us to get us off of our beam, to get us off of our center, to get off of our our progress toward perfection. What do? This is super easy. You say, thank you very much for sharing, and then you stop engaging with it. You say one thing, you acknowledge it one time, thank you very much for sharing, and then that's it. And then you use your off switch when those thoughts come to you again. If you don't know what the off switch is, you can watch just a little 10-minute video you can watch on the YouTube channel. You just turn it off. You acknowledge it one time. Thank you for sharing. And then you move off of it. You never give it the time of day again, and you move your attention back to asking your soul for the audience rather than your ego. Make sense? Super duper easy. Not always super duper simple, but not always easy. Super simple, but not easy. Because remember that the ego is sly. It's cunning. It's baffling. It's seductive. It promises all kinds of stuff that it'll never deliver. It can't deliver. All it can do is promise. It's like the malignant narcissist in your mind. That's like the thing right now is like, I was abused by a malignant narcissist. I was abused by a malignant narcissist. Well, of course you were. Everybody is. It's called yourself. It's called that part of your mind, that narcissistic little malignant part of your mind that wants to create its own universe. So it's not that it has power, because it has nothing. But it is a voice. And if you choose to listen to that voice, if you choose to follow that voice down its insane path that leads literally to nowhere except for problems, entanglements, if you choose to do that, then you'll go down that path and you'll have those problems. But if you notice that you're doing that, all you have to do is say, wait a minute, let me find that other voice again. And you call upon the voice for your soul. You find that spiritual practice. You calm your mind. You calm your body. You ask to be shown. You ask to be guided. You ask to be led. And you are out of that problem very quickly as can be, where it doesn't bring up more fear, where it doesn't make things worse, but better. Right? So your job is to get so enamored with your soul and so used to working with your soul that your soul doesn't have to pull back so much in the healing, so that you can get those healings more instantly, because you are allowing yourself to not have to be afraid of the healing. And I know it sounds like, why would I be afraid of the healing? Believe me, you're afraid of the healing more than you're afraid of the problem. So that's really just a matter of process at this point. It's just working every single day on choosing which voice to listen to. So now, if you don't have some sort of spiritual practice where you can sit and just calm your mind and meditate a little bit every day, I recommend that you get one. And you can do it really simply. I'll give you a little thing that you can do right now if you don't have a practice that you already are following. All you have to do is get your smartphone or some kind of timer and set the timer for 1 minute. And I want you to just take a moment to sit up straight, your spine straight, close your eyes, relax your body, take a few deep breaths, and think of the word blessed be. And you're going to think of the word blessed on the inhale and be on the exhale. And any time that your mind wanders from the blessed and the be, don't worry about it. Just gently bring it back to blessed be when you notice that it's wandered. So when you've calmed your mind and you've calmed your body and you're ready to start that, where you're thinking blessed on the inhale and blessed and be on the exhale, start your timer. And you do that for 1 minute straight, and do your best to just keep your mind focused, but you don't strain. You just happen to notice when your mind wanders and gently bring it back to the mantra, gently bring it back to those thoughts, blessed be, right? And then when the 1 minute is up, you stop. And then the next day, try 2 minutes, and then keep adding a minute every day. And then if it starts to get, if you start to struggle with that, then stay at that time for a while. Don't keep adding. Eventually you'll get to maybe 15, 20, maybe up to 30 or 40 minutes a day, depending on you. Okay. But if you can do at least 5 minutes a day, if you can work up to at least 5 minutes, 5 minutes of that every day puts your mind in a place where you're ready, willing, and able to have your soul actually be front and center and take charge and you have you have a means by which to have some power over some of the choices that you've been making so unconsciously. And you'll be surprised at the shifts that can occur just from doing this simple little exercise and building up to a minimum of 5 minutes a day. Now, if you can do it twice a day, that's so much the better. But don't try to get there too quickly, because you want to build that habit slowly over time, drip, 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 drip. Because if you try to do too much too quickly, it's oftentimes the ego. Oftentimes that's the ego saying, "Okay, well, let's do this. Let's really, really do this," because it knows that then you will fail and that maybe you'll stop doing this meditation stuff, so it won't be so threatened. Make sense? Well, yes, your thoughts are that black and white, Bella, because they either produce tension or they produce peace. And that's what you have to. That's your guidepost. That's your guidepost. Is the voice that I'm listening to a voice that's bringing me peace? Or is it a voice that's bringing me tension? Is it increasing my light, or is it decreasing my light? Do I feel more empowered, or do I feel less empowered? Do I feel compelled to do, or do I feel compelled to step back, take a breath, and listen, and then act? Right, so that's the practice, and this doesn't come out of nowhere. It's a constant practice of learning where those thoughts are coming from, which thoughts, where your thoughts are coming from. The ego isn't going to just say, "Okay, here, I'm your ego. These are my thoughts. You better annihilate me." That's not what the ego is going to do. Those thoughts of separation have an apex, have a crux. They have a kingpin. There's a kingpin to every thought form. The thought form, the ego is nothing but a thought form. It's not an entity. Okay, but the kingpin of that thought form is separation, separation, separation. Now, if it just said, "Okay, now here, no, I'm the thought form of separation, so you may want to, deal with me," it wouldn't survive, right? And it's got a survival instinct. So of course it's not always going to just come out and say, "Hi, I'm your ego." It's going to be sly and cunning and baffling, and that's why it seems like your thoughts are not cut and dry. But they can be cut and dry if you ask. If you ask, which is this more peaceful or more tense? Really simple, not always easy. Really simple, not always easy, right? Am I increasing my relaxation, or am I increasing my tension? Am I feeling more loving, or am I feeling more fearful? Do I want to get ahead of these people, or do I want to bring these people along with me? Is my heart opening? Is my heart closing? Do I need to defend myself? Do I need to extend myself? Very, very different functions within the mind. So yeah, it may not seem like things are cut and dry, but they really are. But until they are obviously cut and dry, you've just got a lot of practicing to do, right? It's hard when you're practicing certain Bach fugues, because those middle voices, if you're a keyboardist, those middle voices are really tough to keep going, because you've got 4 voices in 2 hands that you got to keep going. So it can seem like this is impossible. This is not so cut and dry. This is not so easy when you're learning Bach fugues. It is if you take it slowly and one step at a time, and you practice a little bit every day, and you don't worry about getting it perfect today, right? It's just the same kind of thing when you're practicing in the realms of consciousness. Yeah, it is that cut and dry. It's either your ego or your soul, but that doesn't mean that you're gonna that you're gonna have mastery over it immediately. It's a matter of practicing over and over and over again. Yeah, you don't want to fight with your ego. You don't want to fight with it. That's what it wants you to do. If you get into an argument with it, it's won. Right? If you engage with it, it's won. The only engagement you get to have with it is, "Thank you for sharing." That's it. No more. That's it. Remember anybody that remembers that movie called The Exorcist back in the 70s? I remember that was such a big deal. Nobody ever let me see it, because I think when I must have been like 10 or something when it came out. I can't remember. But one thing, when I finally saw it, one thing that the exorcist told everybody, that he told his underlings in the other priests that he was working with, is do not engage with the demon. Do not engage with the demon. That's how it gets you. And then it's just talking about the ego, really. It's just all it is. There's no other demon other than the demon of your own creation. And so when in the Bible, when it says my name is Legion, when it's talking about Satan, it's just talking about the fact that the ego can come up with all kinds of manifestations of itself for your consideration to keep you really busy. All kinds of little manifestations of nonsense that it can get you busy following all kinds of stupid rabbit holes, right? And you'll do it as long as you don't realize what you're doing. But as soon as you say, wait a minute, I'm spinning my wheels, let me call on my soul, the soul just lights up the room in your mind to show you what's going on, and all of those dark thoughts are gone. So, because that's what light does, it dispels the darkness. Now, if we can just have the soul 100% shine within the darkness that we're experiencing, then everything changes in an instant. That's wonderful, but most of us can't handle that. Not in this particular time-space continuum. Most of us are, that is actually, I know it sounds weird, but it's worse than the problem itself, because it throws us back into fear, which it encourages us to go deeper into the ego rather than into the soul. So that's why the soul doesn't do things too quickly. It's got the ability to handle everything in an instant, but it won't until you are at a place where you can handle that, where your faith is such that you can handle that without going into fear. All right? All right, well, this has been awesome, everybody. I cannot wait to work with you again, and we will have another lecture really soon. And until that time, blessed be.